Welcome back, everybody. Stephen Morris here with Advisory, and today we're going to be talking about what to do in 1031 exchanges as it relates to you being in a partnership with other partners who own the same piece of property. So at some point down the road, let's say you guys have owned some piece of dirt, or maybe you owned a apartment building for several years, you ultimately decide that you want to sell it, and you sell it for $3 million. And the resulting gain would be about $1 million. You guys don't want to realize that gain. You want to use a 1031 exchange strategy and roll your basis into the next asset. However, you don't want to do it together. That's the main consideration. You're done working with those partners, or you want to pursue different strategies. There can be any number of reasons on why you don't want to work together, but the ending outcome is you want to do a 1031 exchange separate from your two partners. What's the problem with that? Well, you guys are in a partnership. And under the 1031 exchange rules, the partners would have to, in the partnership, exchange into the next asset together. There isn't this concept of swapping out membership interests in the partnership in order to get 1031 exchange outcomes for different partners in different ways. Because you can't simply sell your partnership interest to another person, because selling a partnership interest is not considered to be an interest in real estate, it's considered to be an interest in partnership. You would have to figure out a way to get some sort of fractional direct ownership of that property, sell that piece of property, and then do your 1031 exchange separately. How do you do it? Well, they call it the drop and swap. Or alternatively, you drop the property out of the partnership, you distribute it to the partners, and the partners, instead of owning it under the partnership, will own it together as tenants in common. Once you guys are tenants in common, you can separately convey your tenant in common interest in the property to a prospective buyer and use those proceeds as long as they follow the 1031 exchange rules. It goes into accommodator's account and they hold on to it while you identify a property. You can then take your portion of the property's proceeds and move on and do your 1031 exchange separately from the other partners. So mechanically, here's how the resulting transaction would look like. Partnership distributes the property to the members of the partnership. Partners then have a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 interest in the property, and they would have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of the $1 million of gains, call it $333,000 to be a nice even number. And when they sell the properties, what they're going to do is all three of them are going to be the sellers, because no buyer really wants just one piece of a particular property. They would like to have the whole. They're going to be buying all three TIC interest or tenant in common interests from the three sellers combined. They will then take on the property as presumably a fee simple interest in it. The sellers are going to have the funds, their equity return plus additional gain, go into the accommodator's account, and then they'll separately identify their properties that they would like to buy, which have nothing to do with each other. Once they receive the proceeds, once the money goes into the accommodator's account, they're pretty much done with each other. They don't need to work out anything anymore. They don't need to coordinate. They don't have to call each other and say, wish Merry Christmas or Happy New Year any longer. That's pretty much the end of their relationship. So the main question is, can you just utilize this tax strategy all the time? So you have this property, you decide to sell it, and about a day before you close escrow, you drop the property into a tenant in common interest, and then you convey those interests straight to the buyer. There's gonna be an issue with that. And if the timing between when you distribute the asset to the partners in form of TIC interest and the sale happen too quickly together, then you might have an issue and the IRS might disallow that transaction. From a 1031 perspective, they might say that this particular asset was held for sale, that it was similar to inventory, or that it was not truly an investment. So generally speaking, the best way to get around this is to hold the property as a TIC interest at least for 1 year. This requires substantial planning up front. And by the way, the worst time to do this is after you've done the transaction, you try to recharacterize what happened. That's never gonna work, okay? But generally speaking, if you're looking to exit a partnership with your other partners, well, you need to contact us and we'll help you structure it. But you want to do this way in advance, okay? So at least a year beforehand is going to greatly support the facts and circumstances around whether or not your ownership in the TIC interest is going to be something that is considered to be an investment, which would then qualify for a 1031 exchange. One other consideration I want you to be aware of is simply distributing the asset out of the partnership into a TIC might run into an issue with your lender. You've got to be really careful about that and make sure you clear it with them, because the lender loaned the money to the partnership. They didn't loan it to the tenant in common interests. And so they may disallow that transaction, or they might call the loan, right? So those are things that you don't want to have happen to you because you're so focused on the tax outcome, you forgot that there was a business and operational consideration as well. The lender may or may not allow it. I think generally speaking, in commercial loans, you can structure something along the lines of, hey, this will work out. The borrowers are the same, the guarantors are the same. There's not really going to be a change in ownership per se. It's more on paper than it is in reality. They'll probably work out something with you, but this is something you're going to want to contact them about beforehand because they'll know about it. The minute you transfer title, they're going to get notification. It's going to change your insurance as well, so you're going to have to be careful about that. The insurance policy is to the liability company or to the partnership or however you're holding it. It's not to the tenants and commons members. You're going to have to redo your insurance as well. So there's a few other considerations that are involved there in order to achieve this ultimate tax outcome of doing a 1031 exchange and separating it out. It's not impossible, just stating that you've got to plan for it and you got to be ready for that eventual outcome. So if you're looking for advice on how to structure your next 1031 exchange as it relates to exiting out of a partnership in the form of a TIC, then feel free to contact us right here and we'll be more than happy to assist you in figuring out that transaction. Thank you so much for watching.